People living in third world countries. What is something that is a part of your everyday life that people in first world countries would not understand cope with? Egypt here. Crossing the street is some kind of a sick sport here. I studied abroad in Cairo and by the third month I was playing Frogger on the Nile Corniche without thinking. If my mom saw me cross the street like that she'd have a heart attack. When I visited Cairo, that is exactly how I was taught to cross the roads. I was in Egypt while it was under Mubarak, and I remember trying to contend with traffic in Cairo. I had to ask the police officer who was standing there if the drivers obey the lights or the road markings. He told me that those were there to make the roads look nice. I chickened out from crossing the street and tried to find a metro station to cut through, even if I had to pay the £1 to enter. I walked with my cell phone hidden in my pants because it's extremely common for you to get robbed. I've been through a violent robbery at a dining, and very few people I know haven't been through similar experiences, multiple times even. I always carry 2 cell phones with me. One is my real cell phone. I hide it in my backpack. If I don't carry the backpack, then in one of my socks. Lol. I carry the other cell phone in my pocket. It is useless. It broke 5 years ago and has no repair. If someone tried to rob me, I would give them the fake cell phone. I learned this trick from a friend. A gang member tried to rob him. He told him to give him his cell phone. So he took out his fake cell phone and threw it as far as he could. The gang member went after the cell phone and my friend used that moment to run. The gang member realized what was happening, but it was too late. My friend managed to get to a store with security guards where they helped him and called the police. Sorry for my bad English. Your English is really good. Don't beat yourself down. In Argentina, the price of everything rises almost every day. Argentinian here. You just go to the store expecting everything to be 5 to 10% more than the last time you went. How do you cope with that? Is it possible to put assets into other currencies or otherwise reduce the currency volatility? You just don't buy stuff. You buy food and a few things more. For example, my family goes to the supermarket and we buy food for the whole month. It ends up being cheaper than just buying it over time. One aspect of living in a first world country is that it's normal for things to work. In third world countries, it's the opposite. Technology, roads, institutions. There is a tacit assumption that none of these things work the way they are supposed to, and that's just the way it is. When you live in the third world, your roads are full of potholes, your lights go out every week, if not every day, everything is on the fritz and politicians are incredibly corrupt. And yes, I know that there's corruption in Europe and the US as well, but it's not like our corruption. Example, in the summer of 2016 I took a trip to Germany and I was at the Hamburg train station, waiting for the 6:50 train to Bremen. At 6:45 the train station attendant announced that the 6:50 train was cancelled, but that there was another at 7:05 and that the train company would be happy to exchange everyone's tickets at no cost. There would be, at most, a half-hour delay. People were flipping the duck out. A girl called her parents in tears. A couple threatened to sue or kill or maim the train station attendant. My German isn't great and neither is my irate German. It was like someone had declared WW3 over a half-hour train delay. In my country, on the other hand, there are no half-hour train delays. Because there are no trains. Shit, I wish we had trains. That first paragraph sums it up perfectly. If you're going from a first world country to a third world country, the key to happiness is to just go ahead and assume there will be a problem, delay, outage, and then be pleasantly surprised if it actually works or it wasn't as bad as you expected it to be. I had been living in Morocco and took a trip to Germany. I was waiting for the train and it was listed as arriving at like 7:23. I thought that was hilarious. The idea that it would actually arrive on time to the minute was inconceivable. I honestly didn't believe it was possible. I was so shocked that the train actually pulled in on time to the second that I took a video of the sign and then the clock and then the train pulling in. I showed it to all my friends. No one could believe it was real. Realizing that my money and any more I could make is worth 5x less now. Welcome to Lebanon. Visited Lebanon once. Friendly people, fantastic food. It's too bad that politicians screw everything up. Not just in Lebanon, but everywhere. Here in Peru, especially if you are not from the capital, to get a medical appointment you need to wait 3 months. For surgeries or actual medical treatments it can take over a year. So many people I knew got random appointments just in case something happens. You'd better suffer the hemorrhage that day or you have to pray for the eucalyptus tea to actually work. Thank goodness I was able to move to the capital some years ago. What happens to most people in medical emergencies? People injured in accidents or who had a heart attack? For those cases there is a cost, which is huge. By law, the hospital will accept the patient, but after the first aid has been given the family has to sign documents where they commit to pay the totality of the cost. This is why many people in provinces in Peru die young. Families can't afford to pay medical treatments. In Lima, the capital, is different. There are enough ICU for those cases and costs of public hospitals are lower. However, you still have to wait 2-3 months to get appointments. That system still works bad in any part of the country. Shit, I didn't know this. That is absolutely horrible. Is there any way it could be changed over time? The way the system works? It's so unfair. I don't think so. Our country is known for our political destabilization, which of course affects the healthcare system. For you to have an idea, we've had 3 ministers of health in less than 5 months, so there is never time to actually make changes. We are also the top 1 country of deaths per million since the coronavirus outbreak and top 5 of reported cases. So if the situation was bad a year ago, just imagine now. Our system has collapsed to the point that even private clinics don't want to accept new patients. And if they do, the cost of using an ICU with mechanic ventilation goes from $42,000 to $84,000 for 4 weeks. Here in Peru the minimum salary is of $262. So, we are not really optimistic. Edit. I forgot to mention we are also the worst projected post-pandemic economy of South America. I'm American but have worked in 70+ countries over the last 12 years. So let's discuss Nicaragua. There are no addresses. None. Trying to get to your hotel? You'll get a description of the general location using the rising or setting sun, lake shores and other prominent landmarks which may or may not exist. Then the distance from that landmark in a unit of measurement that hasn't been used for centuries. The Vera. Which is about 2.5 feet. It's truly amazing that anyone gets anywhere in Nicaragua. I am Nicaraguan. So, when I went to do my master's in the United States, I could not understand why the address of the house I was living was so short. I asked my roommate, "Hey, don't you have to put that we live across from the library and say house is white and in a corner?" And she was like, if there are no addresses, how do you receive mail and packages or deliveries of any kind? Mainly, we don't. Packages are either picked up at the office of given in central locations, malls, gas stations, always somewhere public and safe. Office buildings use courier system that are expensive but give you shit where you asked for it. And as for personal, you usually give the neighborhood barrio name, the street where it's located, and tell them to call you. Like, we do have address, but you can't Google it. There are important places that are marked, but in the long run, it's more like okay, I'm in the entrance, go 2 blocks, and on the old bank poster take a left and shit like that. I don't live there anymore, but I used to live in Guatemala. Here's a list of some of the differences I remember. Every house I lived in was inside a gated community. This was the case for many homes in the city of Antigua, where I lived. Each community was like 4 to 10 houses surrounded by concrete walls and barbed wire on top. Some had a guard manning the gate. You could not drink tap water. We had a 5-gallon water filter in our house that we filled with tap water. After a few hours, it drip filtered enough water for us to drink. We could not flush toilet paper. The pipes were too small. It had to be thrown away or the toilet would be messed up. Lots of stray dogs. Once we saw a rat running down the hall in the nicest hospital in the area. The grocery store we went to has organization that made no sense. Toothpaste would be put with the canned goods. No fancy aisles. Instead of scanning barcodes, the employees would manually enter each item you purchased. No plastic bags, just cardboard boxes. Earthquakes and power outages were both super common. At night, people loved to light firecrackers in the street for no reason. These things were powerful and had crazy amounts of gunpowder. You could pay people to watch your car if you parked it on the street to keep it from being broken into. There were no traffic lights in this city. You just kinda guessed what other people were doing. The bananas were amazing there though. The open air market was one of the best things about living there. Bananas in the US where I moved back to taste like wax in comparison. Edit. Forgot we had to take a deworming medicine twice a year that tasted nasty. Despite these precautions, the parasites still messed us up. One of my family members still has gut issues to this day and my gluten tolerance has also been somewhat screwed over, although thankfully not too much. Also, most windows didn't have screens even though mosquitoes were a problem. Having a shit ton of deterrence mechanisms around your house. Burglar bars on all the windows, trellis doors on your front door and then probably one in the bedroom hallway. Keeping your door locked. If you don't have a fence you're just asking people to break in and murder you. South Africa. Broken glass bottles set into the top of the brick concrete fence surrounding your home. I'm Canadian, and I've visited my South African in-laws twice now. One of the biggest culture shocks for me was having to be locked up so tight. Being able to safely be in an unfenced backyard or take a walk by myself at nearly any time of day is a luxury I no longer take for granted. For me it was the opposite. I'm Kenyan and have been living in Germany for a number of years now. The biggest culture shock I had was the fact that I could be out on the streets past 7 p.m. and not worry about my safety, and I'm a woman. Second biggest culture shock was the lack of fencing around homes in Germany. And third biggest culture shock was how people just obey traffic rules. We only get running water twice a week so you have to have a tank full of water in the backyard for the rest of the week. Have to ask if they have bread at the bakery. Everyone has a gun. They are not legal. Metal bars on windows and doors for safety. If you get robbed the probabilities of the thief being a cop are high. People pay criminals to find missing people. Underage drinking is seen as normal. I bought bottles of alcohol many times while in high school and no one cared. -9 times out of 10 you have to go to the neighboring country to buy medicine. You have to give your kids the vaccines that are required by the time they are 11 or they won't go from the 6th to the 7th grade. I don't know if they still do this though. Have to hide your phone in your pants when going out. You can only buy 120 liters of gasoline monthly in the national currency. If you want to buy more you have to pay $30+. Even tough most people in the country don't get pay in dollars. 4 mega internet speed is like the fastest internet connection in Venezuela. More than enough to play RuneScape. How else are they gonna eat? Can't compete with the Venezuelan armor trimmers. Shootings every month in front of my house. Here's the thing with Mexico, the level of inequality is frightening. Human Development Index in Tlahuac borough of Mexico City is comparable to that of sub-Saharan countries, while Benito Juarez borough, also in Mexico City, has an HDMI comparable to that of Germany. Mexico City is one of the richest cities in the world. In terms of GDP, Mexico City rivals cities like Paris, while parts of southwestern Mexico, close to the border with Guatemala, are among the poorest places in the world. Hospitals in the hospital zone in Mexico City have world-class facilities and doctors, and are at the vanguard in high-level medical research, while a simple diarrhea can be deadly in the southern mountains. Large cities, like Mexico City, Monterrey, Guadalajara and Puebla, have very good universities, both private and public, that are often ranked among the best in Latin America and the world. While you'll be lucky if you found a school with concrete floor and electrical lighting in most of rural Mexico. The same in South Africa man. The politicians in charge are not doing their jobs, and as a result it's like we're still living in apartheid. That's a feature, not a bug. Having to stand for hours in bread lines, then 4 hours at the petrol lines, then 4 hours at the cooking gas lines, then coming back home to find that they shut off the electricity because there's too much load. Not many doctors and emergency appointments are scheduled for 1-2 years later. No hospitals are saturated too. Whatever we are given as a donation from other big countries. We either don't have the equipment or specialized people to make it work. What kind of emergency can wait 2 years? Either it's still an emergency after 2 years or you've already died. Stray dogs. Stray dogs, which some of them are hostile, are everywhere. It is not possible to roam in the streets around sunrise when they walk in groups or during night without risking yourself being attacked by dogs. I moved to Europe now, but I am still unreasonably nervous around leashed dogs that people walking. We had a small scare recently with coyotes losing fear of people, and everybody here lost their minds when one sadly attacked a child. I can't even imagine how most here would cope with that becoming a daily. Oh yeah, no, don't bother going out at night. You'll be eaten alive by dogs. Armed security people. Go to the bank. 2 guys holding AR-15 at the entrance. The beer delivery truck. Guy with a shotgun. Whenever there's money involved, there will be guys holding big guns. I've been pointed twice while walking on the wrong side of the street. I visited family in El Salvador about a decade ago now, and it was like this at the time. There were guys with guns guarding things I wouldn't see at home. In the US, there was a man with a shotgun guarding a gas station and buffet-style restaurant food place. This was along the road and not in town. I also remember there was a guy who'd watched all the cars at this big grocery store while people went shopping, and my aunt would give him small change as a tip. I saw this when I visited Guatemala. Even the lunch meat truck, FUD brand, had an armed guard. I wasn't sure if it was really a lunch meat truck, or if somebody had the bright idea to transport cash and truck marked Harmon instead of one marked dinero. In the USSR, prisoner transport trucks were labeled either as bread truck, brownish color, or milk truck, creamy color. The trucks or the prisoners? I've seen a billion times in TV or whatever media that in the US they drink straight from the sink, but if you do that in Mexico you would end up with cholera or some weird disease. I used to wake up to sounds of heavy artillery. Now to the sounds of Blue Jays of Toronto. Can't be more grateful. Such dramatic turn of events. Edit. Birds, of course. That is quite the turnaround. Where did you live? Afghanistan. Welcome to our country, friend. Make yourself at home, because you are. I'll start. In my country, the government switches off all electricity for 2-3 hours at a time, several times a day, to reduce load on the power systems. As I am busy typing this, I'm sitting by candlelight in complete darkness. Edit. I've been waiting to be able to make this edit on a post, but thank you. My first awards. Looks like there does come something good from load shedding. I'm a girl living in Brazil. Living in constant fear for my safety every time I leave the house is exhausting. As a South African girl, I feel the same.